Alfred Sant, then.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to the Minister. Good luck for the Presidency, Mr. Minister. The most recent assessment of the economic situation shows that the economic expansion in the EU as a whole and in the euro area continues and has become increasingly broad-based across countries. Given this economic improvement, it no longer makes sense to use the arguments of austerity to deny to working and middle classes, as well as to pensioners, an improvement in their purchasing power while applauding the increased profitability of corporations. In this regard, wage growth contributes to the economic recovery by supporting aggregate demand, reduces inequalities and ensures high standards of living in the area. Is it not time then, in your view, to push for an EU-wide rise of, say, 5% in the national minimum wage where this applies? By taking place across the board, it would equalise competitive pressures. It would also be more effective in helping reach inflation targets than the monetary tools that the ECB has been deploying these past years. Such a measure can only be adopted at Council level. Would there be any appetite for it there, given the fact that at the European level, the horizon of parliamentary elections is fast approaching? If those elections are going to be a successful milestone for the European project, Member States need to show that following years of austerity, they are committed fast to an improvement in the well-being of families and citizens across the EU. Then, on a different note, in view of the end of the legislature and the Commission's mandate, I would be curious to know what your views are about how effective cohesion policy and EFSI have been to really bring about convergence between the economies of the centre and the economies of the east and of the periphery. Thank you.
Yes, very interesting and serious questions indeed. Thank you very much for that. We could talk about this for days. Now, the austerity measures, I will start with them. I think that the current financial rules are very complicated and they have to be discussed at a council level. The rules have to be simplified, that's for sure. Now, public expenses, they can generate added value, but it is a question of efficiency. And now we have to consider the following: whether public expenses for incomes or other expenses have to come at the expense of the national budgets and competitiveness, because the average European debt level is quite high, and if we spend at the expense of the next generations, well, this is not fair. Indebtedness and increasing the public expenses because of debt is not a long-term policy, and the Bulgarian government does not embrace this. With regard to the growth times, yes, this is very good, very welcome. We can breathe easily, at least in Europe and in the Eurozone, but unfortunately, the moment we experience some recovery, we have to think about the reversal of the cycle, and we might be faced with other crises. People know that there are cycles in the economy, and when we experience good times, we have to think about the bad ones ahead. Now, with regard to the cohesion policy, I can give you an example from Bulgaria. When we joined the EU less than 10 years ago, the average GDP in Bulgaria was 28%. During those 10 years, thanks to the membership and thanks to the solidarity we experienced from the citizens of Europe, the average level of 2016 was 40%. Well, we achieved we moved from 1/3 to one half of the average GDP per capita, which is a very significant progress, and for our citizens, our membership has been a success story. In this sense, I am sure that the role of the national finance ministers with regard to the budget differs according to national traditions and political affiliations, but I don't think that increase in budgets will lead to growth. Otherwise, we could prove the existence of perpetuum mobile.